Today, we uncover the 5 bread brands the UK should be warning about. Products that were pulled off shelves for metal fragments. And everyday loaves so artificial and engineered that calling them bread is starting to feel generous. For decades, the British public was told that a slice of toast was part of a healthy breakfast, that piling our plates with carbs and cutting back on red meat was somehow good for us. They convinced us that the traditional bacon, sausages, and eggs was the enemy while quietly steering us toward the one thing they could mass-produce cheaply and sell to us every single morning. Fast forward to today, and heart disease hasn't gone down, it's gone up. Obesity hasn't fallen, it's exploded. And the very foods they demonized, real meals with real ingredients, were never the problem. Instead, they replaced them with Frankenstein foods. Products so heavily altered, stabilized, softened, and chemically engineered that the ingredient list reads more like a lab manual than a breakfast. The media pushed it. Doctors repeated it. And for decades, we believed them. Because bread used to be simple: flour, water, yeast, and a pinch of salt. But the bread on supermarket shelves today has quietly become one of the most ultra-processed items in your entire shopping trolley. Packed with preservatives, emulsifiers, and additives so strong that no traditional baker would ever call them bread. Number 1. Kingsmill 50/50. The loaf that pretends to be the best of both worlds when really it's the worst of both. A product marketed to British families as the responsible choice, the middle ground, the loaf you buy when you want to feel like you're doing something good for your kids, but peel back the branding and the truth is far less wholesome. They've wrapped this loaf in phrases like great for families, high in fiber, and healthy balance, all while knowing full well that the actual formulation is built on the same foundation as the softest, lowest quality white bread. Refined flour, refined carbs, seed oils. The body was never designed to metabolize. Kingsmill 50/50 is the perfect example of the deception we've all been living under. It looks healthy, it sounds healthy, it's advertised as healthy. But in reality, it's an ultra-processed imposter dressed up in patriotic colors and friendly slogans designed to win your trust, not support your health. And here's the part they don't want you to remember. Bread wasn't always like this. There was a time, and not even that long ago, when Kingsmill made actual bread. Their early loaves decades back were barely 5 ingredients long: flour, water, salt, yeast, and maybe a touch of fat. Nothing your great-grandparents wouldn't recognize, nothing your body would fight against. Contrast that with today's version, a long list of lab-made additives, dough conditioners, palm oil, seed oils, synthetic vitamins, and preservatives. A formula designed not for nourishment, but for softness, speed, and shelf life. And yet for years, they told us this was healthy. When the brand has been in your cupboard since childhood, it's easy to assume it's safe. But this is the great deception of the modern British food system. Even the most trusted labels no longer guarantee purity, quality, or honesty. This isn't the Kingsmill loaf your grandparents bought at the local baker. This isn't the bread your family once relied on. This is a new creation. Industrial bread, designed in factories, stretched with chemicals, stabilized with additives, and pumped full of cheap seed oils because they're inexpensive for corporations, not because they're good for you. Number 2. Tesco White Sliced. The budget loaf millions of British households buy without a second thought. The one people throw into the trolley because it's cheap, familiar, and always in stock. And that's exactly why it's so dangerous. Tesco's basic white sliced loaf has become one of the quietest contributors to poor health in this country, not because it's dramatic or shocking, but because it's ordinary, because it slips under the radar, because people assume that something so basic, something so plain, something so everyday couldn't possibly be harmful. But take one look at the nutritional panel and the ingredient list, and suddenly it becomes painfully clear why this loaf is a problem. High salt, low fiber, sugar, cheap refined flour, a carb load so concentrated it spikes your blood sugar like a dessert. And then, of course, the usual suspects: emulsifiers, preservatives, texture modifiers, all the things no real baker would ever add to bread. All the things that keep this loaf soft far longer than any natural product should ever stay soft. This isn't food made for nourishment. It's food made for mass production, long-distance distribution, and maximum profit with minimum cost. Tesco markets it as a simple staple, a no-frills essential, just bread. But there's nothing simple about it. This loaf is the direct result of industrialization. A product designed to survive warehouses, lorries, shelves, and cupboards without changing shape, smell, or texture for extremely long periods. So, what do you expect it will do in your stomach? Emulsifiers like E471 to keep the crumbs soft, seed oils to extend shelf life, and create that artificially smooth texture people have been conditioned to crave. And that's part of the trick. The conditioning. Over time, the public has been trained to believe that real bread should feel like this. Light, fluffy, springy, perfectly shaped, identical slice after slice after slice. But this isn't how bread behaves. Real bread goes stale. Real bread breaks. Real bread has texture. Real bread has life. Real bread doesn't sit in a plastic bag for a week without changing. The only reason Tesco's white slice does is because it's held together with additives and stabilizers that didn't exist in the bakeries of old Britain. Tesco white sliced is the perfect example of the modern food deception. A product that pretends to be simple while being engineered with unnatural ingredients. Your body was never designed to handle every day. It's not just cheap, it's a cheap imitation of what bread is supposed to be. Number 3. Asda Bakery Soft White. And despite the name, there is absolutely nothing bakery about it. This is one of the biggest deceptions in the modern supermarket world. The illusion that if a loaf has the word bakery printed on the bag, it must be fresh, wholesome, or made somewhere nearby by someone wearing an apron and dusted in flour. But Asda's Bakery Soft White is not baked fresh in store. It's not made by artisans. It's not even made with a bakery mindset. It's made in huge industrial plants, pre-mixed, pre-processed, trucked in, sliced, bagged, and sold under a label that manipulates you into lowering your guard. Asda knows exactly what they're doing. The word bakery is powerful. It makes you picture something honest, local, simple, a counter, an oven, a baker, a loaf cooling on a rack. But look at the ingredient list and tell me what part of this resembles anything a real baker would create. Refined flour stripped of nutrition, seed oils your body never evolved to handle, preservatives to keep it fresh long after any real bread would go stale, emulsifiers to force softness, flour treatment agents to cheat texture, sugars to make it taste better than it should. This loaf wasn't made for nourishment. It was engineered for endurance. This is industrial bread wearing a bakery costume, and they know that if the price is low enough, people won't stop to think about the hidden cost to their long-term health, because it's always the same story. High salt, barely any fiber, refined carbs that spike your blood sugar, multiple emulsifiers that disrupt your gut, and zero nutritional depth. Yet millions of people eat this every day, believing it's a harmless staple, when in reality, it's one of the quietest contributors to rising heart disease, weight gain, and metabolic issues across the country. Number 4. Hovis Soft White Thick, a brand built on heritage, tradition, craftsmanship. Selling a loaf that has quietly abandoned every single part of that legacy. Hovis is one of the most recognizable names in British food. The nostalgic ads, the iconic packaging, the emotional branding about family, history, and British pride. They've spent decades carefully shaping an image of authenticity. But Hove's soft white thick isn't a traditional loaf. Not anymore. It's an ultra-processed formula built on preservatives, emulsifiers, refined flour, palm oil, and seed oils. An industrial creation wearing the costume of a British classic. And this raises the question nobody asks. Why on earth do we need bread packed with seed oils? Bread is one of humanity's oldest foods. Flour, water, yeast, salt. That's it. For thousands of years, those 4 ingredients were enough to feed entire nations. Yet today, in the modern British supermarket, even something as innocent as a plain white loaf is loaded with seed oils, palm oils, and chemical improvers designed to keep the product soft. We already have to deal with sweets flooded with seed oils, packaged snacks drenched in seed oils, takeaways cooked in seed oils, ultra-processed junk food built entirely on seed oils, and now, even our bread. The one thing that should have remained simple has become yet another delivery system for cheap industrial oils our bodies were never meant to handle daily. Hovis built its name on heritage, then quietly abandoned everything that heritage stood for. Their bread used to be a proper British loaf made with care. You could smell it. You could feel it. It went stale after a day or two because it was alive, because it was real food. Fast forward to Hov's soft white thick today, and you're looking at a product engineered to stay soft for days, sometimes a week, no matter how many additives it takes to maintain that unnatural texture. Number 5. Aldi Village Bakery tortilla wraps. The metal fragment scandal. The one that proves this entire industry isn't just unhealthy, it can be outright dangerous. And what makes this one so shocking is that it wasn't some niche product sitting in the back of a specialist store. This was a school lunchbox staple, a family favorite, a healthier option millions of parents choose because they think wraps are somehow better than bread. But in March 2024, Aldi had to pull their Village Bakery 8 tortilla wraps white from shelves. Every batch with best before dates up to April 29th, after authorities found that they may contain pieces of metal. Not just one pack, not one batch. Every pack within that date range. And it was serious enough that not only did the FSA issue a blunt, "Do not eat" warning, the police were called in over suspected tampering. Just think about that for a moment. Families buying these wraps for their children. Parents making packed lunches before school. People choosing wraps instead of bread because they think it's cleaner, lighter, safer. And all that time, metal fragments may have been inside the product. Sharp, invisible, sitting inside a food people roll up and eat quickly. A lot of people switch to wraps thinking they're the lighter option, but many flour tortillas actually contain more calories and carbohydrates than 2 slices of bread. Flip the pack over and you'll usually see a chemistry set of ingredients, all working together to create a product that looks thin and harmless, but behaves like ultra-processed dough in your gut. Sticky, refined foods and similar doughy products can potentially cause intestinal blockages when they mass together undigested in the gut. When you combine low-fiber, high-refined starch, industrial fats, and a cocktail of emulsifiers, you're absolutely not doing your digestion any favors. For a lot of people, these ultra-processed wraps mean bloating, discomfort, sluggish digestion, and blood sugar spikes on top of everything else. And the worst part, they're sold to you as the healthy alternative. And now, bonus number 6, Stamford Street medium white bread. Before we wrap this up, this one deserves special mention. It's not just another loaf. It's almost a statement of how far we've fallen. Look at the ingredient list and ask yourself, would a human being with basic common sense recognize these as food? In Stamford Street medium white bread, you'll find soya flour, calcium propionate, emulsifier, mono and diethyl tartaric acid, esters of mono and diglycerides of fatty acids, rapeseed oil, flour treatment agent, ascorbic acid, and palm oil. Is this what bread has come to today? Chemicals, seed oils, stabilizers, texturizers, none of which exist in real traditional bread. This is what they are trying to get us to eat. And if the ingredients weren't enough to raise alarm, check the reviews. I've never seen so many one-star reviews in my life. People say it tastes bland, plasticky, stale, even when eaten immediately. Several people have even reported that the birds in their garden refuse to eat it. Now that's got to tell you something. They're tried to push food to the public that even the street pigeons reject with their higher standards. If even the pigeons won't touch it, maybe it's time we asked what we're putting into our bodies and what we're handing to the next generation. This bread sums up the whole problem. Cheap cost, massive volume, minimal real nutrient value, and maximum chemical engineering, all wrapped up in a comforting, familiar package. And because it's at the budget end, the promise is you're saving money. But the trade-off is your health, your gut, your digestion, and what counts as food in your home. And here's the uncomfortable truth. As these corporations become more profit-driven and more disconnected from real food than ever before, this situation isn't going to magically improve. If anything, it's only going to get worse. Every year, the ingredient lists get longer. Every year, more shortcuts get taken. Every year, the food they deliver becomes more artificial. Not because it makes the food better, not because it nourishes families, but because it boosts margins, speeds up production, extends shelf life, and keeps these companies competitive in a race to the bottom. And we are the ones paying the price with our health, with our trust, and with the slow erosion of food culture itself. So what do we do about it? You don't need to go fully homemade or overhaul your entire diet overnight. Even the smallest step makes a difference. If you can, try baking just one loaf of bread at home each week, even if it's not all the bread your family eats, even if it's just a Sunday loaf or a weekend bake. It's a skill worth rediscovering. It's simple, cheap, grounding, and honest. And more than that, it's a skill that can be passed down to the next generation. A legacy of real food in a world where everything is becoming artificial. Imagine a future where your children know how to make bread from scratch instead of relying on whatever Frankenstein formulas the supermarkets decide to push next. That alone is worth the effort. And even if you don't have time for homemade bread or a full traditional English breakfast every morning, that's fine. Life is busy. But there are still better choices. Instead of grabbing an ultra-processed square of industrial bread, try something with fewer ingredients. Stick to whole foods when you can. Swap out the artificial loaf for real porridge. Traditional Scottish oats cooked in 5 minutes. Nourishing, filling, and completely unprocessed. A bowl of oats is infinitely better for you than a slice of bread held together with conditioners and industrial oils. And you don't need to be perfect. You just need to make better choices more often than not. Because the British public deserves real food and honesty. Instead, we've been sold illusions. They kept the name bread, but not the product. What we're buying today is not the bread of our grandparents' era. It's not the bread Britain was built on.